We have a practitioner that has written in and is asking if to offer assistance with the following situations: cardiometabolic with cholesterol testing, high particle number and size, high small dense, high triglycerides, how to reduce the amount of small particle sizes, all the cholesterol questions, it looks like. So we know that you are an expert here and that you'll be able to help us sort all of this.
I believe I can, and the headlines are as follows. You need to know the oxidation state of critical fats or lipids. What does that mean? The oxidation state of your low density lipoproteins. So you need to measure either oxidized LDL directly, not antibodies against oxidized LDL. That's a separate test for a separate reason, but quantitatively measure whether the cholesterol and or fats have been damaged by oxygen. And if they have, take action based on the sequence so that you get enough antioxidant to deal with the oxidative burden. And let me be clear that when we look today at various fractions of cholesterol, of triglycerides, of HDL and LDL, of small particles and dense particles and large particles and light particles, and all of that is physical chemistry from the 1970s, based on a now disproven hypothesis. The hypothesis is called the diet heart hypothesis of Fredrickson and Levy. Now, Don Fredrickson ran the National Institutes of Health and was a very effective leader and innovator in science. And his protege, Bob Levy, ran the Heart Institute. And they believed that the fat you ate determined, they believed incorrectly, that the fat you ate influenced your risk of heart, vascular, and brain issues, like heart attacks and peripheral and central vascular and pulmonary and cerebral and stroke risk. They're all related. And they're all related to your oxidative state or your antioxidant status. So you can measure, and I urge you to measure oxidized LDL or oxidized cholesterol. You don't need both, but one of them is rarely measured today and will tomorrow replace most of the confusion that exists because the diet heart hypothesis was never correct. And the work of Don Fry, Bob Maley, and myself on animal models of functional heart disease in the 1970s have now been extended to people over long enough time that we can say that your antioxidant status or your oxidative burden is critical to measure. And there are a few other critical things to measure. For example, do you have too much sugar stuck on your hemoglobin or other proteins? And so measuring an accurate hemoglobin A1C is predictive of cardiovascular risk. And so is high sensitivity C-reactive protein, HSCRP. The high sensitivity C-reactive protein is predictive. And so is homocysteine, but it's got to be a plasma homocysteine. It's got to be processed quickly because homocysteine leaks out of red blood cells when they stand around waiting to be processed. So the answer to the question is that I suggest you stop the confusion, because the more measurements without meaning, the more measurements of fractions of triglycerides or lipids or cholesterol, whatever, until you get to the core issue of, is any of the fat damaged by extra oxygen, by oxidative excess and antioxidant deficit? Until you get to the issue of, sugar metabolism, sugar energy status in the cell, which is reflected in hemoglobin A1C and in some other analytes, some other measurements you can make, like fructosamine. And the high sensitivity C-reactive protein, as I mentioned, and it should be less than 0.5, as the hemoglobin A1C should be less than 5%, and the homocysteine should be less than 6 micromoles. And we, at the Health Studies Collegium Working Group on Functional Outcomes, are very clear that if you use the self-assessments, the 4 self-assessments, and the 8 predictive biomarkers, you cover all of lifestyle and epigenetics. And now you find that the cholesterol corrects itself and the triglycerides correct themselves when the repair deficit known as inflammation, or when the self-attack known as autoimmunity, or when the nutritional deficits known as antioxidant deficit, antioxidant deficiency, or mineral buffering deficiency. For example, measuring first morning urine pH is urged as part of heart and brain health and overall body health. So you check the urine pH after rest and you adjust the doses of magnesium and choline citrate, some 2 or more a day. You take 2 doses for maintenance if you're in the 5.5 to 6.5 to 7.5 range. You want to be 6.5 to 7.5 in the urine pH. Most people are a 0.5 to 1 or 1.5 pH units below that. It's a logarithmic scale. So the difference between a pH of 6.5 and a pH of 5.5 is a difference of 10, factor of 10. And the difference between 6.5 and say 4.5, which we see, is a difference of 100. It's a logarithmic scale. So you want to measure first urine after rest, and you want to adjust the doses of magnesium choline citrate so that you have enough magnesium to activate your ATP, to keep your mitochondrial battery functioning and giving ATP to the cell. You want to keep a proton gradient that allows the cell to be alkaline and not build up extra acid protons. You want enough magnesium to activate the magnesium-dependent enzyme catalysts that are essential for healthy cell function. And then it turns out magnesium is an antioxidant that protects essential fats in LDL, and it protects cholesterol from oxidation. So, very important question, often misunderstood. Most of what is written today is a book report from 20 to 40 years ago. And it was about 40 years ago that I had my time, my tenure, in this field of cardiovascular disease and models thereof. And the diet heart hypothesis, give up, it's not the issue. But your antioxidant status, your buffering mineral status, your essential cofactor status, your stress level status, your hormone balance status, are the ticket to long-term, lifelong heart health. And to summarize all of this in the way that Mel Brooks does as the 2,000-year-old man, he says that he makes sure every day that he breathes deeply and walks and ambles in the forest so that his heart will not attack it. And so in sum, I want you to know that all of these elegant measurements are measurements with little, if any, meaning, clinical, predictive, individual meaning. They may have population significance. That's a completely different issue. But for individuals, people, you, me, follow what I just suggested, and you will cover all of heart health, and you can maintain heart health for life. So please do.